Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Roll the Dice with Dave. Hope everybody is having a great Tuesday. We've had a little rainy, cool day here in Florida, but looking forward to tonight. Have a great guest. We're just going to be sitting back, just a couple of guys talking about fatherhood, talking about being husbands, talking about coaching, and talking about sports. I got a great sports enthusiast tonight, so looking forward to tonight's show. Those of you that are tuning in on Facebook, go ahead and hit that like button. Let's go ahead and get those likes up and go ahead and share. Let people know that we're having a great conversation tonight. Just a casual kickback conversation with an average guy like myself and a not so average Joel coming on in just a second. So please go ahead and like and share. Also, if you are checking us out on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to Roll the Dice with Dave, and go ahead and share that as well. You can also check out my Facebook page, Roll the Dice with Dave, where you get updates on upcoming guests and different topics that we are going to be discussing. So without any further hesitation, I'm going to go ahead and bring out my guest, Mr. Joel, and hopefully I won't say this wrong, Holsopple. Hopefully I got that right.
Pretty good.
Glad to have you on tonight. How are you doing tonight, my brother?
Not too bad. Yourself?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Glad you could join me. I'm looking forward to tonight. Just a kickback conversation about being a husband, a little bit about being a father, a little bit about coaching, and we're going to talk a lot about sports because I know you're a sports enthusiast. We talked about that. So, but before we get into all that, do you mind just giving a little brief introduction of yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Joel. I live in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, which, if you're familiar with United Flight 93 on September 11th, that plane crashed about 2 miles from the house I grew up in on my birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was my 16th birthday when Flight 93 crashed, and all the craziness of September 11th. Currently, I work at the largest online public school in Pennsylvania as a success coach, which is essentially remediation, things like that. My wife works there also. She's a fifth grade special education teacher. 15 years of high school football coaching experience. We've been married for, I don't want to get this wrong. Will be 12 years in October.
Okay, I was going to say, if you get it wrong, this could be a pretty short show, right, as she yanks you up by your hoodie. So
she's just in the next room, so it could be but it's 12 years in October. We have 2 boys, Brody, who's 8, and Cohen, who is 4. Average American, two kids in a dog house.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. So we do have quite a few people throwing out the hellos. So Ed is on. So Ed, I've already told Joel I'm going to ask about what you were like in college because I know you guys were roommates. So I'm going to get the dirty on Ed McGinley here in just a little bit. But as we start getting into tonight's conversation, Joel, one of the things I like to do is called the review, and it's just reviewing some different topics. And one of the things I have really gotten into, I would say over the last year, is just checking out different shows, right? So different series, things like that. And I've been turned on to a couple of really good series. Haven't dug deep into some of them, but I'm looking forward into digging deeper on some of them. So one that I checked out was True Detective. Show is sick. I couldn't believe how good it was. And when I say sick, I mean sick in a good way. So there's Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey. I checked out the first season on HBO. Absolutely loved it. Also on HBO, I checked out Westworld. Season 1, I can't wait to jump into season 2. Insane, those shows, right? So coronavirus has got a lot of people just staying home, doing a lot of different watching of things. What are some of the things that you watch or that you've been checking out that you're really into as far as TV shows or series or anything like that?
Well, sort of just, tell your guests about a little bit about my personality and a little bit of my wife. I always say that we are like the king of queens. I am very much like Doug. She can be like Carrie. Um, she tells me to do things, and sometimes I hear her, sometimes I don't. Um, God bless her for putting up with me. But so I really like the King of Queens. And through, because of COVID, my wife got me hooked on a bunch of different shows. We've been binge watched House, watched all of those.
So can I ask you a quick question about House?
Absolutely.
What is it about House that you guys have just like binge watched and jumped into it?
For me, I wish I could be like House. Just say what's on your mind, and if there's repercussions, who cares? Because they can't get rid of you. You're that good. Because a lot of times I bite my tongue and don't say what I really want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what was appealing to me with House. Just the say what you want, do what you want. I'm Gregory House. What are you gonna do about it?
That's awesome. I like that. Any other shows or anything else you're big into besides House?
Yeah, This Is Us and A Million Little Things, Grey's Anatomy, and recently we just started watching just about a week ago, Army Wives. I know that's not a typical. The demo wasn't the 36-year-old male, what they were aiming for, but it's a good show. I'm not gonna lie, it's a good show.
Well, and you never know, right? So you speak about the demographic when you said demo. I think about just some of the things that I've started watching or I've started just checking out, and I doubt that I'm the demographic for some of those, right? 47-year-old Puerto Rican from New York, and I know some of these shows that I'm checking out, I'm probably not the primary target market, but in this age of COVID, man, you just never know what's going to catch your attention. And because I'll be honest, I never would have thought when all this first started that I was going to sit and binge watch Tiger King with my wife and kids, right? And we sat and watched Tiger King. And when it was all said and done, I sat there and went, I can't believe I watched this thing from beginning to end. And I'm not talking about like one a day. We watched like 75% of it in one day, and then we had to watch the other 25% the next day. I want to ask you something about This Is Us, because you just said, not the demographic. What is it about This Is Us? And I'm not dogging the show. I haven't checked it out to say one thing or another, but I heard it's an unbelievable show. What is it? What does it have that does it for you that makes you just want to keep getting into that show?
It's very relatable. Not necessarily to me personally, but it's relatable in the fact that, there's every day, what's the word I'm looking for? Trials and tribulations that go on in that show. The one character has substance abuse issues. The one character is obese and trying to get pregnant while she's obese. Just things that anyone can relate to. Is what I the father in the show passed away when the kids were 17, 18-ish.
Okay.
So that's something that a lot of people can relate to. It's not these far out trials and tribulations that are too unrealistic. Sterling K. Brown he's also in Army Wives. Is an amazing actor. So that's sort of what draws me to that show, is just the relatability.
There's so many people that have talked about it. I have family members that watch it and talked about it. I'm going to have to jump on the bandwagon and start checking it out, because everybody I talk to has nothing but great things to say about that show.
Yeah, it's a great show.
All right, I want to move on to the next little tidbit of conversation. I call it HTM Highlights. I am the Director of Hospitality and Tourism at Flagler College. The success of the industry is so important to me as an educator and as an industry professional. Just curious, since all this started, how have you and your family been dealing with things that are hospitality related, such as going out to eat? Have you guys gone on vacations? Do you plan on going on vacations? We'll start with the food piece. Are you guys going out to eat and sitting in restaurants?
No. We went out to eat since March of 2020. I would say less than 5 times.
Oh, wow. Is that like in total, like picking up food and taking it home, or just going out and sitting down to eat?
Yeah, going out and sit down to eat. I would say less than 5 times. And, that wasn't even until about 4 months ago.
Okay.
4 to 6 months ago. We do still do the takeout stuff. On occasion, we probably should less. I know that's not what you want to hear.
No, it's something I even say in my house, man. I'm part of the industry, and I'm like, man, we eat out too damn much. We can't eat out so much. Yeah, and it's so easy right now to do it too.
It is. But we still do takeout, but we really limit how often we go to a restaurant to sit down and eat.
No, I don't blame you for that. I know a lot of people that are taking those kind of precautions, and in this day and age, it's one of those things that I think people need to do what they feel most comfortable with. So, it's a crazy times, right? It's just crazy time. So I do have a couple of questions to build off of that. So one, of the 5 places that you went out to eat, if you could remember where they were, which was your best experience in going to those places? Where'd you go, and what made it your best experience?
Honestly, it was just this past Saturday. My uncle and I went to get fitted for my cousin, his son's wedding. We want to get fitted for.
Okay.
And it was just, nice to just sit down with my uncle one-on-one and we talk politics and obviously sports. We have very differing views on politics. But I gave him a ride home. I didn't leave him at Eaton Park and make him walk home. But it was fun just to talk to my uncle just one-on-one. Something I haven't done in a long time.
Cool. And what's your favorite place to get takeout?
Favorite place to get takeout? Honestly, it's a local restaurant.
Hey, I like to hear that, man. That's awesome. Support local. That's awesome.
It's called Wimber Walk. It's in Wimber, Pennsylvania. It's a Chinese restaurant. I don't deviate with any restaurant. Eaton Park, I get the fish sandwich. Wimber Walk, I get General So's. Like, it doesn't change, but theirs is the best General So's I've had.
That's awesome, man. I love that it's local. You're supporting local business. I think that's important right now. I'm glad to hear that. And we share a favorite dish. One of my favorite dishes is always the General Tso's chicken, man. You just can't beat it. You got just enough spice, mixing it with the rice. The sauce is always good. So that's how I determine a good Chinese restaurant as well, man, how good their General chicken is. So I appreciate that. Do you guys have any plans for vacationing anytime soon, or is that something you're pushing out a little bit farther on the horizon?
Actually, we do. We are going on 2 vacations this year. We are going in June with my mom and dad and our 2 boys to Ocean City, Maryland. And then in July, we are going with my wife's mom and dad and her brother and sister and our nieces and nephews to Myrtle Beach.
Oh, cool! I got family down in Myrtle Beach. Yeah, so
that is my favorite beach to go to. If I could live,
is it really?
Yes. If I wasn't such a mama's boy, I would live in Myrtle Beach, but I can't be that far away from mom.
Oh no, I can understand that, man. That's cool. Have you not been down to St. Augustine?
No.
Oh man, we're gonna have to fix that, man. You can come down, visit me and Ed, and then you'll never want to leave the St. Augustine beach area, man. I tell you this.
Well, I would have to drive because I'm not good all the time.
Oh, you don't like to fly?
I don't like anything to do with heights.
Oh wow.
I don't stand on ladders.
So I couldn't convince you to come with me skydiving. That's definitely not a question.
Not
gonna happen. Nah, man, that's cool, man. Hey, everybody's got their thing that they don't like to do, and I definitely understand that. I want to move on to the next little topic of conversation, which was going to be leading into some of the things we're talking about later, the in your opinion piece. And I put out a little poll question asking people if they think sporting events should be going on during the COVID-19 pandemic. 70% of the respondents that replied said yes. What are your thoughts on if sporting events should be going on, and why do you feel that way?
I am going to play it safe, and I'm going to say they should be going on, but without spectators. And I think, people need some sort of escape from coronavirus. And, there's only so many shows we could binge watch. So I do think that they should, and I'm glad that, different leagues are playing and have played. But I don't think right now is a good time to have fans in attendance. I know some stadiums or states are allowing 10%, 25%. I think until we get, learn more about the virus, watch from home, and it's not the same, but it's what I think is the responsible thing to do.
All right, so I gotta throw this up because I think this is hilarious. So I don't know who Donald Holsopple is.
That's Dad.
That's Dad. So he said, ask Joel about the I formation.
My dad coached football probably 20 years, 30 years, something like that. And he is a big believer in the I formation, which is, if for anyone who is unfamiliar, it is quarterback under the center, fullback right behind the quarterback, tailback right
tailback. Yeah.
I'm the offensive coordinator at the school I coach at now, and I run the spread offense, which is the polar opposite of the I formation. Dad wants to run the ball 99% of the time. I want to throw the ball 99% of the time. So we have had lots of conversations / arguments about why mine is better than yours.
Oh, dude, I bet you those conversations are so good.
Yes,
father son polar. I bet you they're awesome, man.
It's a generation thing. It worked when I did it, so it has to work now. And I take this. No, the game's too fast now. It doesn't work anymore. So it's both opinions. Mine's right because I know Dad, you're wrong. But no one wants to watch a game that ends 10-7.
Or as Ed puts it, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, right? So I remember those days. I was more of a when I played in high school, we had a coach that was a strong believer in the wishbone, right? So we ran a wishbone. Yeah, so you want to talk about 3 yards in a cloud of dust sometimes and then going off of there. But I was a tailback, so I didn't mind all the running. So running out of the I would be thrilled, right? Going off of that old school, give me the ball, feed me, right? Let's set up the pass after we establish the run, where you're more of, hey, we can do some running after we've established.
Actually,
or do you like to run it big off the spread?
Ideally, no. If we call 8 to 10 running plays a game, that's a lot.
Oh wow! Oh man.
The screen game basically replaced the running game for me. Wide receiver screens.
So that's what you got. Oh man, I tell you what. Hopefully, I can get some film and watch what some of you guys do. Check you guys out, and that's awesome. Just to touch a little bit more on that, so I'm down in Florida, and Florida has been open season, right? So we've kind of just operated on a totally different set of rules. I know Ed is tuned in, and he could attest to this. But my sons play football here at St. Augustine High School. Open, had fans. They had limited, but we still had fans. Made a run to the semifinals for the state championship. And I'll be honest, I think that helped keep some people sane through the year, right? I'll be honest. But at the same time, I would have been okay if they told me as a parent, you can't come to the game, you got to watch it just on broadcast. I would have been like, okay, that's fine too. I was actually just more concerned for a lot of the kids that played on the team, that is their primary escape from some tough life that some of them have. So I was glad that there was some playing. Players were masking up and those kinds of things. The only thing that just made me feel a little nervous at times was going to some of the games and people walking around as if nothing was going on. As soon as they got into the stadium and walking through there, kind of ripping off that mask, and I was like, hey, doesn't mean that everything's okay once you get in the stadium. So I definitely understand where you're coming from, but I do think it helped created a sense of normalcy. Baseball season's going on right now at St. Augustine High, so I'll be honest, I'm kind of glad that they're doing the sporting events. But I'd be okay if they said, hey, no fans, we're just going to have the players, and we're just going to have somebody sit with a laptop and broadcast the games. I would have been totally okay with that too. So
yeah, that's what we did up in Pennsylvania. A lot of the schools had like special cameras installed in their in their gymnasiums and on their soccer fields, football fields, where it follows the movement. It's not actually anyone operating it. It's
does this sit like on a tripod and it moves by itself?
It's I know ours is attached to our press box.
Oh, that's legit, man. That's
it
cool.
moves by itself. And whoever could, if you wanted to buy a subscription to this, you could watch the game on this website. And that's how the first couple weeks of the season went, because we didn't allow fans in at all. And then about halfway through the season, it was each player for the home team got 2 tickets to the game.
Okay.
And then about the last 3 or 4 weeks, it was each player home and away got 2 tickets.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. I like that camera thing that's there. So now we're going to jump into just talking a little bit more about you, your life, and then we're going to jump into some sports conversation, not just all kinds of sports. We're also going to talk a little about pro wrestling. I know you also mentioned you're a big fan of fantasy sports, so there's going to be a big smorgasbord of conversation. But before we get into that, just want to talk about you a little bit on being a husband. How long have you said you were been married? 15 years, is that correct?
12 years in October.
12 years in October. So how did you and your wife meet each other?
We actually knew each other since middle school. And we first started dating when I was a junior and she was a senior in high school.
Oh, wow.
We met, started talking to each other. There's a community like picnic in our area, and that's where we started talking to each other. She actually thought I was dating another girl that I was going to like a family cookout with later on in that same day. She thought we were dating. We had to confirm with one of her girlfriends that no, they're not dating. He's available. And we started dating September 6th of 2002. I know the date and time we started dating.
Man, that's awesome. That is awesome. So your wife's name, what is your wife's name again? Is it Nikki?
Nikki, yep.
All right. So Nikki, what would you say is the best thing about being married to Nikki?
She is a great mother. She is a fabulous mother. She, being so active in coaching, she's a great, what a lot of coaches call a coach's wife, where she understands that from, basically June through November, I'm not going to be home a whole lot. But she's still, the kids get fed, homework done, whenever I get home from practice, all that good stuff. And she is the, they say opposites attract. Mm-hmm. And we are exhibit A for that. She's, pretty quiet, kind of low key. I, will talk, she would never do this. That's just not her personality. So just everything that I'm not good at, she seems to be really good at. So we just click.
Man, that's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that. So do you guys, and things may be a little bit different now, but do you guys still find time to go out on date nights in the middle of this coronavirus situation? Because I know you have 2 sons. Is that correct?
Yes. You have 2 boys. We do, but we are both kind of homebodies by nature. If we go out once a month, once every 6 weeks, the 2 of us, that's we're content with that. We're not the type of people to go out, every other night or every weekend. I just had a friend recently on Friday night text me, "Hey, I'm going, to a local bar. You want to come?" And I said, "Not really. I already got my sweatpants on, and I don't want to get up and go." So.
Oh no, that's awesome, man. My parents were like that. My parents really weren't the go out type. They were always at home. I remember those days. So so my wife just wanted you to know, if you ever come visit us in St. Augustine, that they want nut rolls. Yeah. So that's right. Nut rolls are big in PA. So do you mind just talking a little bit about nut rolls?
I hate them.
Do you really?
I don't like them. I think they're disgusting. I don't like them at all. So I send my Ed's right. I just see he commented. I do always have sweatpants. That's a factual statement. I do always have sweatpants on. But I can't stand nut rolls. They seem to be at every holiday, and the nut roll's so good. I hate it.
Oh, that's a trip, man. That you don't like the nut rolls. That is too funny. That is too funny, man. So my mom sitting there laughing at that. I love the fact that Ed called you. He's like, "You always got sweatpants on, bro."
Yeah, I don't think I wore jeans 5 times since COVID hit, because I don't need to go to work anymore. I work from where I'm sitting now is also my office / dining room. So I am in sweatpants every day, and in college I was in sweatpants every day. So Ed is correct there. I always wear sweatpants.
That's true. My wife is in disbelief. She's like, "I can't believe it. You don't like nut rolls. My grandma's nut rolls were the best." Now that people are talking about this food thing, is there anything else that is like Pennsylvania that would be a food thing that you do like, that you're like, "Oh yeah, this is a Pennsylvania thing. I'm big on that."
Are you familiar with a gob?
A gob? No, what is gob?
A gob is have you maybe heard him called a whoopie pie?
Oh yeah, yes. Okay.
Yeah, in PA we call them gobs. I'm a big fan of gobs. I probably shouldn't be a big fan of gobs, but I am. Another like local food, right? Pennsylvania type of food. I don't know. Maybe Ed can help me out on this one. Oh, pepperoni rolls. Yes, I love pepperoni rolls and pierogies. Are you familiar with pierogies?
Okay, I'm familiar with pierogies because I spent some time in Lubbock, Texas, and they call them kolaches. Okay. So they call them kolaches there. And when I first saw it, I was like, "Isn't that a pierogi?" And they looked at me like I had 8 heads, and they were like, "These are kolaches." And I was like, "It's the same thing." All right. Yeah. You call them kolaches, it's a pierogi. Yes. So
my sister-in-law actually will make homemade pierogies, and they're delicious.
Cool, man. That's awesome that your sister makes them. So when you come visit, you can just bring some of your sister's stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So we're gonna get you and your family down to St. Augustine. So we're gonna make this happen. One other thing I wanted to ask you before we move on and talk a little about fatherhood and then jump into the sports piece. Have you and your wife just felt overwhelmed as parents? So this is kind of transitioning into the marriage and the parenting piece during this COVID, or do you feel a sense of it's kind of same different day? Or
I mean, there's days where we have an 8 and 4-year-old, so there's days where it's just our 8-year-old doesn't want to do any work. Our 4-year-old's whining all the time because he wants snacks constantly. But for the most part, not really. I will say, and I don't want to toot my own horn, because Nikki will attest to this. I am the patient one of the marriage. So whenever the kids are just stressing her out, go see your dad, because dad can put up with a lot more than I can.
That's true. You kind of touched on that one piece I was going to ask. As a dad, are you the ice or more the fire? But you've already kind of touched on that.
They will ask Nikki for a cookie, and she will say 1. and they will come immediately to me and say, "Can I have 2 cookies?" And I know she's watching, so I'm going to come clean. There have been times, Nikki, there has been times where Cohen has been in the kitchen while you were upstairs getting ready for baths with the kids. He had 2 cookies, and I told him, eat them in the kitchen. Don't take them upstairs.
Cool. Which leads me to my next thing. What is your favorite thing about being a dad?
Right now, my favorite thing about being a dad is I'm still cool. Like, they want to be around me. Because I know whenever they're 12, 13, 14, I'm not going to be cool anymore. So that's why I try to suck up as much of being cool and them wanting to be around me as I can. Because one day I'm not going to be cool. And I know that. So while I'm still cool, I'm going to let them think I hung the moon.
Cool. I like that. I hope my kids still think I'm kind of cool, even though they're 20, 18, 15, and 13. But I'm sure the bankroll of coolness is probably running lower and lower at this point in my life. I want to touch on the next little piece of your life as we get ready to transition into the sports. Do you coach your kids?
I do. I coached, my oldest son in t-ball and machine kick baseball and basketball, which I don't know how I got the basketball, coaching basketball, because I'm not good as a player. I basically know you have to dribble. That's about all I know. So I have coached Brody. Now this year, my youngest son, Cohen, starts t-ball. So I will coach Cohen in t-ball because, Brody has me as a coach, so now I'm going to coach Cohen. But eventually I want them to not have me as a coach so they can get criticism from someone else.
Yeah, I remember when I reached the point when I was like, man, it was getting tough because your dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then your coach. And then when you get in the car, you just want to be dad again. But then you find that your coach still in the car, right? And some of the things are still there with the get right. So it's going back and forth, especially. And my son asked if he could jump on in a little bit to talk about the sports piece, right? So he wants to get on the sports conversation. I'm going to let him in a little bit. We're going to talk about sports, but especially with him because he was always craving feedback. And there were some times I was like, okay, he can do this better or that better. And you just want to sit in the car as dad and be like, man, let's just go get something to eat and absorb the fact that we didn't have a good game, right? But he's asking for feedback, and then I'm giving the feedback, and I'm sitting there going, man, I wonder if he thinks I'm just the absolute butthole, right? So, you know what I mean? So he'll be able to attest to this here in a little bit. And my mom just put up, yes, I still think my dad is cool. My dad always was the cool dad, though. I think I can honestly say this, and it led to some interesting things. I remember one time for my birthday, we were all going to go out to a movie and hang out, and all my friends were like, yo, is dad coming? Right? And I was like, hold on, let me call him and see if dad's coming. My dad came, and we all went to the movies and hung out. But my dad was always invited, and then they said, hey, don't tell my dad your dad's coming because then they'll want to come too. Right. And they didn't want their dads to come, but they didn't mind that my dad came. So I guess my dad was always the cool dad. I hope I can still maintain that for a little bit. So I know where you're coming from, Joel, on that piece. At what age do you think maybe you're going to start drifting apart from the coaching of your kids?
Right now, I'm not. My son Brody is 8, and I'm not coaching him in anything right
now.
Okay. Now that being said, I'm sure once practices start, they're going to say, hey, Joel's standing over there. And I was able to put my foot down. I wasn't going to coach him in football, and I didn't. I was able to duck that at least for this past season. But, yeah, I think it's starting to come time to where Brody has other people as coaches.
Okay, cool. So I'm about to bring my son in to the conversation because we're going to start talking some sports stuff.
Okay.
And let me go ahead and add, this is my son, Diego. Hey, what's up, Diego?
Hey.
You doing all right tonight, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
All right. So there are several different sports conversations, and I want to jump into one right away. Hopefully, we'll get some comments from the peanut gallery on some of these as far as conversation. So I want to start with the goats, right? We're going to start with goats, and we're going to talk about goats in different sports. So the first one I want to talk about is football, and you know who I want to ask about, right? I'm going to ask about Tom Brady. So Joel, I'll start with you. Is Tom Brady the GOAT?
Yeah, he is. You don't have to like him, but you got to respect him. He especially when you consider where he, 6th-round pick, number 191, I think overall, came out of nowhere, all because Drew Bledsoe punctured his lung.
Dude, you ain't lying. That was crazy.
So I as a Bills fan, I can't believe I'm saying this, but yes, Tom Brady is the greatest of all time in football.
Unless he's playing the Giants, right? That's a whole nother conversation, and we'll leave that there. So, Diego, is Tom Brady the GOAT?
I can never admit that Tom Brady is the GOAT.
So why can you never admit that, man?
I mean, he winning 7 rings obviously takes a lot, but I don't think that the way he plays makes him a GOAT, especially considering some of the GOATs of other sports. He doesn't necessarily drag his team along. There are a lot of situations that he got bailed out of where I think in each year he's won a Super Bowl, at least one of his games he's done like 3 picks and still managed to win a playoff or Super Bowl. And so with the aspect of football being such a team sport and all the other quarterbacks that are, I think, better players that just haven't been able to win as many, I can't say that Tom Brady's the GOAT.
Can't say that, and I love it. My dad threw up the 18-1, right? So, you have Eli Manning, the GOAT killer, right? According to yeah, I love it. He's like, what, this guy? So, Joel, you got something to add to it? You look like you want to.
Yeah. My follow-up question to is Diego. Is that your name?
Diego, yes, Diego.
What has Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman, Ben Watson. What have they done without Tom Brady? Don't worry, I'll wait.
That's true. They haven't done anything. The only thing is like they've done nothing without Brady, but also Brady typically has a team around him as well. Like he had the Patriots defense for most of those years, and then this year coming to Tampa, they pretty much set up a stacked team for him, and then just brought him and Gronk in.
What did Antonio Brown do in Oakland?
Well, he wasn't necessarily in his right mind.
Dude, he also had Carr as his quarterback.
Okay.
I could have probably done a better job than David Carr, right? Dave Rivera could have done a better job than Carr. I'm just saying. It's just hard, I'm with Diego, and I don't know if it's the New Yorker in me. It's just hard for me to give Brady the GOAT title. I think he's the winningest quarterback. We can give him that, right? I think I can give him the winningest quarterback, but I think there are some quarterbacks that if you just look at the position itself and what it takes to be a quarterback, I think there were some that were better quarterbacks. They just had unfortunate circumstances with some of the teams they were on. And I'll give you one that I think actually as a pure quarterback was better than them all in Dan Marino. As far as being a pure quarterback and his skill set, it's just unfortunate that with some of the Dolphin teams he were on, and then he ran into who I think is the greatest quarterback of all time. Okay, so Ed's going to ask who I think is I would go with Joe Montana before I would go with Tom Brady. That's just me, and maybe it's just because I'm old school. But I would go with Joe Montana as one shot, one game, one quarterback before I would go with Tom Brady. And that's just me. But it's kind of that same argument people will have, and we'll talk about Tiger in a little bit. Is Tiger the greatest of all time? If you go based on just winning, then no, he's not. but everybody says he's the greatest golfer ever. But Jack Nicklaus has more majors, right? Tiger has more tournament wins than everybody. So there's so many different pieces that come into play. And I'll give you that, Ed. He had Jerry Rice, and then he didn't do anything when he went to Kansas City, where Tom Brady goes to Tampa Bay and then wins a Super Bowl. So, there's a lot of debate there. But Joel is, it's not your average Joel. Joel has the last word. So Tom Brady is the GOAT. We'll go with that based on Joel having the last word.
And I can't believe, as a Buffalo Bills fan, I can't believe I said that.
Right.
I've been groomed to hate Tom Brady, but he's good.
And I will say this. I think there's something to it, that the fact that we're all saying, I don't want to admit this because I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. I'm a Giants fan. You know what I mean? That there may be something to it because we're all saying that. I will throw this up. And we're not talking about running backs. And now my dad jumped in on this. He mentioned Jim Brown. I still think there's a little debate there as far as greatest running back of all time. But Jim Brown is definitely in that conversation. But we'll talk about football beyond that here in just a second. So I want to move to the next one, next big debate topic. And Diego, I'll start with you, basketball. Who is the greatest all time in basketball?
I think Jordan is the greatest of all time when it comes to basketball. And it was more so, like, not necessarily the winning, like you were talking about with Brady. It's the way he played the game kind of pushed forward the league. And everyone talks about the way Curry changed the game with his shooting and whatnot. But he really drove the league to the way it is now with kind of the flashiness and the attraction that it has. And then everyone kind of built off that. Like Kobe followed in Jordan's footsteps to then become the player he was, and things kind of like that. But I think Jordan's the GOAT when it comes to basketball.
I love all these comments, man. The comments are flowing in. I knew we were going to get comments from the Peanut Gallery. I love it. So, Joel, your thoughts? NBA, who is the GOAT?
Jordan. And it's I don't want to hear anyone say LeBron James. Because LeBron James would get destroyed if he tried to come in the lane against Bill Laimbeer. With as much flopping as LeBron James does, there's no way he could have played in the late 80s, early 90s with how physical the game was then.
I disagree with that because I think if he came up in that time with his body size, he would have played the game differently than what he's playing now. What is he, 6'8", 250, 260? I think he would have had a problem because he would have come in the lane a lot differently. If a guy's standing there, he would have come in a lot differently to hurt somebody driving through that lane, even with Bill Laimbeer, where Jordan was not as big. So, yeah, he went in the lane, and that says a lot about Jordan. But I think if LeBron played in that era, we see a totally different LeBron, and dudes are getting hurt by LeBron when he drives the basket.
I mean, you could make the counter argument as to why doesn't he do that now?
The reason he doesn't do it now is probably because they'll just start calling fouls left and right. I honestly believe that they would against Braun and give him a charge. Back then, they let guys play. No blood, no foul. They let guys play, and that was my era of basketball. I grew up in New York City, playground basketball. And here's a thing, people have bounced off of LeBron when they've driven into the lane. I would have honestly have loved to see LeBron play in that era where they gave a little bit more leeway on what guys can do with their hands. That was another thing Jordan was able to do with his hands that
hand check.
Some guys, yeah, man. And that's what makes this conversation so interesting is we can't just plop these guys back and forth because I honestly believe if Jordan had come up now, his game style is a little bit different. I think his game style is a little bit different. He had to be the Jordan he was back then to survive. But Jordan had trouble, and this is my thing with Jordan. He had trouble getting past anybody until he got Scottie Pippen. Right? And then when he got Scottie Pippen, he had another top 10 player of all time. And it really allowed Jordan and Pippen to change their games in a way that then they just became unstoppable.
That's true, but what did LeBron James do before he went to Miami? I asked your son, I'll ask you, don't worry, I'll wait.
Well, and that's like, what did Michael Jordan do before Scottie Pippen? Don't worry
Right.
out. Yeah, you know what I mean? So we'll be sitting for the next 15 minutes, nobody saying a word.
Right.
There's a lot of pieces there. So, not discounting Jordan, because he turned the game into something that nobody had really seen at that point. I remember, and my dad could attest to this, how excited I was to get my first Jordans. Right. Oh, that's what's up. The hick from French Lick. I will give you this, Ed. Nobody talked better smack than Larry Bird. I'll give you that. And I will also give you this. Every player pretty much that played against Larry Bird did say Larry Bird not only did what he did, but he told them, I'm going to do this, and there's nothing you can do about it, and then did it. And when you consider that he was white and everybody said he was slow, can't run, can't jump, can't do this, can't do that, and as great as he was, I'll give you a little bit of that, Ed. I love Larry Bird. He's actually probably my favorite player of all time. So we got two MJs as GOATs. So I guess we have a consensus there. Let's go ahead and move into the next one, baseball. Who is the greatest baseball player of all time?
Baseball. Even though I coach football, baseball is my favorite sport, and I'm not sure if Dad's still watching because this is another argument we have a good bit. Barry Bonds is the greatest player to ever put on a baseball glove.
Oh.
Without question.
Oh, no way.
It's not even close.
You can go ahead, Dad.
You're right. There's Barry Bonds is the best of everybody else. And then you have Willie Mays pretty much in the class by himself. But Diego, what you got?
Honestly, like this one, I don't even really think about this one as much just because of how different baseball is, considering like with basketball, the way it is played now, every position is kind of versatile. So everyone talks about like the greatest of that and then quarterback. But with baseball, each thing is so different. Like if you're talking about greatest catcher compared to anywhere else on the field, it's so different than if you're talking about greatest basketball player in general.
Okay, I see what you're saying there, but I'm thinking, and maybe Joel's thinking along the same line. I am, the five tools, right?
Yeah.
The five tools, and that's why for me, I say Willie Mays. Now, granted, I never had a chance to sit and watch Willie Mays, but I've seen a lot of the old footage, and when you compare Willie Mays to the best at different times, I feel he outpaced. The only thing he didn't outpace Barry Bonds in was home runs, but he was a better fielder, better average hitter overall. If he played in a different era, the stolen bases wouldn't even be close, because Willie Mays could basically steal at will. The arm, I think he had a bigger arm than Barry Bonds. So there are pieces, and what changed it for me, honestly, with Barry Bonds hitting wise, was the whole steroid scandal thing. That is for me still a little issue with Barry Bonds, because he was one of the greatest of all time without the potential and enhancement. So, but I see why a lot of people say Barry Bonds. The biggest thing I get is they're like, and maybe this is what you're thinking. Well, he was walked with the bases loaded, and I'm like, that just means the coach was a punk. That's all that means to me.
Yeah, I mean,
chump.
My dad and I. This is another argument we have. He says Roberto Clemente.
Yes, the Puerto Rican pride, baby. That's what's up. Your dad is my man.
And he will always say Roberto Clemente would have thrown out Sid Bream in the 1992 NLCS. But I just say Barry Bonds has 8 Gold Gloves too. I mean, he wasn't just at the plate. I mean, he got it done in the field too. And to the counter argument with the steroid thing, all the other 9 players trying to get Barry Bonds out were also juicing. So it wasn't the even playing field because everyone then was juicing. Pitchers, catchers, position players. So it was an even playing field.
I get what you're saying. Diego, what's up?
Steroids doesn't help you hit a baseball.
That's true. It doesn't. That's true. It does. Because if that was the case, Jose Canseco's twin brother would have been an all-star as well, and he washed out of baseball. Because genetically they're identical, and they both juiced.
Yep.
And Canseco was a 40-40 man, and his brother was bagging groceries, right? So
Ozzy Canseco.
yeah, I love the fact that your dad said Roberto because being Puerto Rican, he's such an idol, right? So to the island, everybody that's Puerto Rican, and without question, the greatest arm I think ever in Major League Baseball. I don't think it's even close. The things he did throwing a baseball was just unbelievable what he was able to do. So I always compare people arm wise to Roberto. But no, it's still even hard to argue the Barry Bonds thing because I always liked Barry Bonds. I remember when he was 175-pound leadoff man for the Pittsburgh Pirates, playing with Bobby Bonilla, all those guys. And I liked Barry. I remember Barry Bonds when he played with was Arizona State. You know what I mean? There was just something about the guy that I think he's one of the greatest. It's just hard for me to say he's the greatest of all time. Want to drift into kind of back into football because it did come up, and I did have it down. Greatest running back of all time. Diego, let me start with Diego, and then we'll go to you, Joel. Diego, who do you think is the greatest running back of all time?
Mine might be biased just because I'm so young, and so I haven't necessarily seen that much. But I'm gonna go with Barry Sanders, and I'm gonna compare him to Saquon, obviously, because everyone compares Saquon to him. But his versatility, where he was agile but was powerful enough to go through people as well, compared to just being able to go between the tackles or just trying to juke everyone out, I think makes him the best running back of all time.
Okay. Joel?
I'm going to go with a homer pick, and I'm going to say Thurman Thomas. Because he was a pass-catching running back before there were pass-catching running backs. And he kind of outlined.
Al Bundy, Polk High, baby. That's old school right there.
Can I change my answer? Because Al Bundy did score 4 touchdowns in one game. But no, I'm going to go with the homer pick, and I know he's probably not the greatest of all time, but for me he is because he was really the first true pass-catching threat out of the back, or the biggest pass-catching threat, or first, whatever you want to call it, of the time. With the K-gun offense, he would line up out wide as a receiver, which until then wasn't done a lot. Your running back was in the backfield. So he kind of changed the position a little bit.
It's funny you mentioned the Buffalo Bills because a lot of people give me crap when we start talking about some of the greatest teams of all time. And I say, yes, I understand they lost 4 Super Bowls, but they went to 4 Super Bowls. And how many teams do you know can do what they did over that stretch, right? It wasn't like they went and then disappeared. And then, they went to 4 straight Super Bowls. And it's like, that's like unheard of, right? So to me, that's one of the greatest teams ever to be able to do something like that. And when you look at some of the players, so yes, I love Thurman Thomas. I don't think he's one of the greatest. I think he's one of the best running backs of all time. I don't think he's the greatest, but he's a guy that I could sit and watch every Sunday. If Buffalo was on TV, I definitely sat and watched Buffalo. So I want to move through to a couple of other topics. We touched a little bit about already baseball and steroids. So I want to jump to one of the other ones, college athletics and being paid. So Joel, do you think college athletes should be able to get some kind of paycheck from their universities?
Absolutely. The universities make billions of dollars off of these kids, and they get. I'm not discrediting. I'm still paying student loans, so I get that they get a college education, which isn't cheap, but the scales are nowhere near balanced. I'm a huge Ohio State fan. I know Ed will appreciate that, but Ohio State made so much money off of Justin Fields.
It's very hard.
That's like one of my favorite movie lines is from Basketball. And do you think Shaquille O'Neal made his money playing in Los Angeles? No, he made it playing in college. Everyone does. But no, they absolutely should be paid. But where it gets sort of tricky is who gets how much. Why does the 5-star recruit, quarterback recruit at Ohio State get this much, but the national champion, freestyle swimmer only gets this much?
Mm-hmm. And it's probably because the swimmer can't get 90,000 people to go watch them swim.
Right.
It's they're not buying the little Speedos with his name, him or her name on it. So Diego, do you think college athletes should be able to get paid?
I definitely think college athletes should get paid, and like my biggest thought right now is because they're talking about bringing the NCAA games back, and so like growing up playing those, I love playing those. I want them to bring them back, and they would make so much money off of those, like they make so much money off of filling stadiums every Saturday, that I feel that they definitely should get some kind of kickback. Like Joel said, it would be tough determining athlete to athlete who makes how much, but they definitely should get paid in some way. Also, considering they put so much time into that sport that they don't really have time for other stuff, especially at a D1 level. They're not going to be able to get a job and work or do anything like that.
Yeah, and that's always been my argument. I love when people are like, well, they're getting a free college education. Well, I know a lot of students that get free college education through scholarships, and then they can still get a job. Some of them actually hired by the university to do a job. And here you have, and they produce like almost zero, right? They give zero financial contribution to the school. And then let's just go with who I think is the greatest college football player ever, Tim Tebow, right, out of the University of Florida. His jersey sales alone, right, the revenue it generated for the University of Florida, his jersey sales alone, and theoretically, he didn't get any money, right? So we'll say theoretically because we don't know how that whole situation played out, but there's nothing there. The issue I have would be, and I think Ed just hit this up, here you have Alabama, right? And then here you have Muskogee State. Both D1, you have the best of the best in Alabama, and then you have this lower level tier 1 that barely has enough boosters. Alabama is able to pay their players, $40,000 for a school year, and there's other places like here we can give you $2,000 for the year. There's that uneven balance, and I think that's kind of a little bit what Ed's talking about, and I think what you mentioned too, Joel, from that standpoint. Anything else either of you want to add as far as the conversation of pay?
I think it's long overdue. Like we shouldn't even be having this conversation in 2021. This is a conversation for 2000.
So there were a lot of things we wanted to talk about, and we're getting close to kind of running that last little bit. So I want to talk about this because I just thought it was fascinating, Joel, that you're still a big wrestling fan. Diego, I don't know if you still pay attention to wrestling or anything, but I remember some of the old school wrestling. So Joel, do you remember when you first got into wrestling, like the WWF and all that stuff?
Yeah. I was 4 or 5 years old, and my babysitter, her son would watch wrestling, and I just got hooked. I would literally ask my mom if I could rip shirts like Hulk Hogan, and she never let me. We had a record of like different wrestlers' theme music, and I would have her, drop the needle on the record. Diego, you probably don't know what that means. But I would be in my bedroom, and she would put the needle down for Hulk Hogan's theme song, and I would come down the hallway and pretend I was Hulk Hogan.
That is awesome. Diego, I'm trying to remember, you never really were into wrestling.
The most I was into wrestling was playing the WWE games on Xbox and stuff.
I see, and I do remember playing those. So Joe, I got to ask you, who's your favorite wrestler of all time?
Probably Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Chris Jericho was the first undisputed champion, which when WWE bought WCW, each company had their own champion. Chris Jericho won both titles. He was the first person to win both titles, hold them simultaneously. So I would say Chris Jericho or Shawn Michaels.
Okay. Cool. Diego, you have a favorite wrestler?
I mean, I know the basic ones like The Rock when he wrestled.
So, see, and in my time, it was, I think my favorite of all time was Randy Macho Man Savage.
Yeah.
Oh man, my dad's throwing up an old name, Bruno Sammartino. That's so old school. Is he from Pittsburgh?
Yes, he is. Yep.
Oh, I did not know that, man. That's like a hometown boy for you right there.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. But yeah, I remember Randy Macho Man Savage. When I was a kid, I remember people coming to school and being like, "Oh yeah, let me tell you about the Macho Man," and dropping the elbow. My brother and I used to wrestle and jump off the bed and drop elbows on each other. Oh my God, the Ultimate Warrior.
It's fun. It's funny you mentioned that, Ed, because I am a big wrestling nerd, and I am currently wearing my Ultimate Warrior socks. I have tons of these things. Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant. I mean, I am still a 10-year-old kid and watch professional wrestling.
Yo, I think that's dope, man. I think that's pretty cool that you're into it. I love Diego's face. He's like, man, I don't know nothing about wrestling.
I know Andre the Giant, though. I do know Andre the
Giant. you know him from the movie, The Princess Bride? Was that the movie he was in?
Yeah.
I never watched that, but he was in the wrestling games and stuff, too. And Pablo always played as him.
All right, so you do know that. As we start to wrap up, I got to ask you this, Joel, because I'm just really curious. And actually, this is a two-part question. Which wrestler would you love to wrestle against, and what would be your finishing move?
For anyone who watching who knows wrestling, that would be easy. Barry Horowitz, because he was what they call a jobber. He lost all the time. So if I wrestle Barry Horowitz, that means I'm winning.
You guaranteed the W, baby. Yeah.
But honestly, I would have, if I ever had the opportunity to wrestle, probably Hogan, because everyone knows who Hulk Hogan is. Even if Diego, have you heard of Hulk Hogan?
Yeah.
Case in point. And my finishing move, that would have been. Oh boy, I don't know. There's a lot of good ones. I always kind of would get my brother in a full Nelson whenever we would wrestle, and those wrestling matches that were, just playing around turned into us fighting. I always seem to get him in a full Nelson, and so I would probably go with a full Nelson and Hulk Hogan.
So I gotta ask: is Angie DeGori one of your friends?
Yes, that is my cousin's wife.
Yo, that's dope. She says, "Iron Mike Sharp and the Diamond Cutter." That is awesome. I'd also want to wrestle Hulk Hogan. And this is going to be an old school move, the camel clutch.
Okay.
Right? Do you remember the Iron Sheik?
Yep.
You know what's crazy? And I teach diversity, equity, inclusion, but the Iron Sheik, probably his character may not exist today, like based on all these things, but he was one of my favorite characters growing up. And when he used to throw dudes on the ground and put the camel clutch on them and sit there and grab them under the chin and just be going to town. I love his battles with King Kong Bundy too.
Yeah. Fun fact about the Iron Sheik is he was a bodyguard for Saddam Hussein.
No way, dude! You're just like a plethora of knowledge there.
Yeah,
I learned Bruno Sammartino was from Pittsburgh, and he was a bodyguard for Saddam Hussein. That is pretty cool. So we didn't get to everything that I hope we would have gotten to talk to, but hopefully you've enjoyed talking about what we did get. I've enjoyed myself so much, Diego. Hopefully you've enjoyed it as well. So before we wrap up, I want to give you guys a chance, this last section is just called the Rant and Rave with Dave. Diego, I'll go with you first. So, Joel, this way you can have the last word. Diego, is there anything that you want to add as far as your thoughts on any of the little pieces we talked about sports?
I want to go with the best football player, like, period of all time, LP.
Lawrence Taylor, that's what I meant.
He is the best football player because we were talking about, like, individual positions with quarterback and Brady and then running backs. So I think LP is the best player of all time.
Okay. I can go with that. Joel, anything you want to add on any of the conversation pieces we had tonight?
I'm going to touch on sort of the parenthood, fatherhood, husband, spousehood, and something that I was always taught is just, in life, just treat people the way you want to be treated. I know that's not really what we talked about, but I try to treat, I think I do treat my sons and my wife the way I would want to be treated. So just, love one another more because in 2021, we freaking need it.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And there's been a request that we need to do a part 2. I will definitely be reaching out because there's still like 20 things on the list. We definitely are going to have a part 2. Diego, the question is, what does the shirt say? Do you want to go ahead and elaborate on that?
All right, so my shirt says Free Dow on it. And it's something our baseball team did because one of our dads that's been to like every game over the years and is extremely supportive. It's one of our seniors, one of my teammates. His dad's very vocal at games, and a lot of times that pisses off the umpires. And so he got thrown out of our first game this season. And he told the AD to kiss his ass while he was leaving. And so the AD then got him banned from all of our community events for the year. So the baseball team all wrote Free Dow on some white shirts, and we were wearing them around. Just kind of a way of like showing our support for Dow for the way he's vocal at our games.
And I was there. And it's one thing, where people are trying to support, but the level of support the team showed for this parent that was told they can't come back, even at another event. Everybody was walking up to him at the fundraiser for the baseball team. Sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but sometimes I've had it happen, Joel, where you just get a little juiced up at a situation. It's unfortunate that cooler heads couldn't prevail and say, hey, this is an incident. Maybe we can just brush this off. And unfortunately, he's banned. But the players have rallied behind him. Joel, have you ever been in that kind of situation where your emotions have got the best from you? And
yeah, I used to coach high school baseball and Legion baseball. It's a summer league, and I've been ejected from quite a few games. And as I guess luck would have it, 10, 12 years later, I became an umpire. And now I am strictly a fan of baseball. I don't coach. I don't umpire. So yes, I've definitely lost my cool over something. Looking back, like maybe he was out. Maybe he was.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both so much for being on the show. And before everybody goes, have a couple of announcements I want to make. So one is we have an amazing young woman. She is a graduating senior from Flagler College. She is doing her senior honors project. Tomorrow, she is hosting a podcast called The Pineapple Pod with Palermo, and it is looking at the past, the present, and the future of the hospitality industry, especially in what's going on with COVID. She is going to have a panel of guests, and this is shaping up to be a great podcast. You can find it on Facebook, and it's going to be at 8 p.m. Tomorrow evening. Please tune in and check it out. She is hosting. Really looking forward to it. And the reason I'm so excited about this is I have had the honor and the pleasure of serving as one of her faculty mentors. So I'm really excited about this. Next week, we have real Dr. She refers to herself as being able to discuss mental health without the psychobabble. She is a little more just says what is on her mind. So I put the parental advisory explicit content next week, March 9th. Also, she is a great leader, and that's what the hashtag Day 7 is. We went through a workshop together, so hopefully some of you can tune in next week on Facebook. She is an amazing person, and I think everybody should tune in. Amber, I saw that you're tuned in. It's my honor and pleasure. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. So hopefully anybody that can tune in can check it out. And those of you that can tune in next week can check it out. Gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Everybody, including you, Joel, be looking for the invitation for part 2. This conversation is definitely not over. Looking forward to continuing this.
I look forward to it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Diego, thank you for joining us, and I'll invite you back and start doing the sports talk. Everybody, I hope you have a great evening, and please listen to Joel. He says everybody needs a little bit more love right now in 2021. Please listen and give as much love as you can to your fellow men and fellow women. Everybody have a good night.